There's never been a character in history or in fiction that has an alignment.
How can something be neutral and evil?
Because alignment is hilarious, messy, and an overall chaotically good time to stereotype people with.
An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is by no means anything but lawful and good.
Luckily, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't have any of that dumb personality shit that nerds argue about for hours on the internet in hopes to totally pwn the other side with facts and logic or anything.
If you're anything like me, your first introduction to alignment was through memes.
Explaining the D&D alignments by how you greet people.
But as time has gone on, you probably got dragged into some D&D game with a friend, and no one laughed when someone said, "What's your alignment?"
Dude, because you wrote evil on your character sheet, do something evil or change what it says.
You had to figure out what each of these strange word combinations meant. What even is lawful neutral anyway? Who even is chaotic good? Eventually, we all kind of figure it out because alignment is a fundamental structure of the Dungeons & Dragons world. Reading a book like Planescape wouldn't make a lick of sense without this founding principle of alignment. Except, as time has gone on, even classes which relied on alignment, like paladins and clerics, barely interact with it anymore. Also, isn't it weird that drow have to be evil? Wouldn't it be more accurate to say that their culture breeds evil people? But we can't get rid of alignment. We have angels and demons, and they need something to inform the conflict between them other than they just don't like each other. What a quandary. If only there was someone who spent entirely too much of his life looking into alignment to make a video about why alignment kind of sucks. Well, to make that video, they would need a cool game company to make an alignment alternative which keeps some of the good parts of it and strips away all the bad parts. Oh wait.
The answer we were hoping for was Pathfinder.
Now, how did we get into this whole mess of chaos, law, good, and evil? Well, if there's any one thing to blame, it's the Eternal Champion series by Michael Moorcock. Moorcock built a world where his protagonists, the titular Eternal Champions, were fighting the cosmic powers of chaos with law. As some of you may know, Moorcock's novels were one of the major influences for Dungeons & Dragons, and the clearest sense of this is the law and chaos alignments in the original version of D&D. This is what alignment was meant to be, a character's stance on the cosmic struggle between law and chaos. This was the case until 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. 2nd edition added the second axis of good and evil and made a matrix. 2nd edition was a real fan of matrices, huh?
Leave me alone! Akira!
There were 9 alignments, each one being a combination of either law, chaos, good, evil, or neutrality. These 9 alignments make up the modern-day alignment grid. This is where alignment shifted from being a question of allegiance to law and chaos, instead becoming a matrix of your character's sense of morality. While a seemingly small change, it's clear people get pretty precise talking about morality. Now, I don't want to say alignment is worthless on its face. I think it serves a much greater purpose of giving players and game masters an easy way of understanding a character's personality and worldview at a glance. Alignment also allows players to be part of a greater whole of individuals fighting evil or good, whether you choose to maintain the law or sow chaos. It gives players directions for their character. That said, as time has gone on, it's clear people have applied alignment in really odd ways, given the way D&D and Pathfinder seem to reinforce alignment. Alignment's misuse and misunderstanding has left a lot of strange and esoteric beliefs stemming from it. One of the ways alignment is used and viewed is as some sort of strange biological determinant. Orcs are chaotic evil, humans are true neutral, etc. This has led to criticism as it doesn't seem to embrace the fact that most people are simply a product of their experiences rather than committing to a specific set of beliefs because they happen to be born an orc. While I won't touch on this subject too much given its propensity to be as annoying as possible, all I'll say is that alignment certainly hasn't helped our discussion about the current beliefs of various D&D races becoming more interesting. In fact, it does the opposite by putting them into these strange boxes. Another way alignment is misused is as some sort of personality quiz. This is where the memes come in, but a practical example is Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous by Owlcat Games. The game has you pick an alignment for your character at the start, you get specific dialogue choices relating to that alignment. However, depending on your choices, your alignment can shift. The character's personality is being reflected by the alignment. This is beneficial considering alignment is now descriptive instead of prescriptive, which avoids some of the biological determinism discussed earlier. That said, there are still issues. Despite alignment being a code for a character's morality, it's also part of the cosmic battle between good and evil. Imagine being conscripted into the cosmic side of chaotic evil because you're a thief. Larian understood this when making Baldur's Gate 3. Alignment didn't really matter to the story of fighting against the Illithids, and you aren't necessarily the good guy for fighting against them. Another issue this personality quiz has as a system is that there are too many complicated moral questions which don't appear to have an answer which neatly fits into this 3x3 square. For example, is it lawful or good to change a demon from chaotic evil to lawful good with a spell or magic item? Are we removing their free will? Are we making society better? These are somewhat complicated moral questions which have no great answer within the bounds of the infernal 3x3 square. This is what makes the personality quiz version of alignment hard to discuss when making difficult moral decisions. Another way alignment is misused is simply as a way to create unnecessary arguments. When making a decision the rest of the group finds abhorrent, the offending player may point to their alignment as a form of defense. I've done this before to justify retributive justice against criminals as a lawful good character. Even my previous point regarding morally difficult questions is fodder for more arguing about what alignment means, who decides upon it, and why it means the things it does. It's all argumentation about nothing important. All this conversation should be is one about beliefs, actions, and the stances you may be taking on a cosmic scale. If only there were another way. Small side tangent, the 4th edition of Dungeons & Dragons was not the most popular edition of the game, but it did push a lot of new ideas into the forefront of the game. This included alignment. 4e provided 5 alignment options: good, evil, lawful good, chaotic evil, and unaligned. This pushed most people to be unaligned rather than opting into the cosmic conflict of good and evil. Classes like Rogue and Druid didn't need to play with alignment much because Druids probably cared more about nature and Rogues probably cared more about their pockets. They didn't care at all for what being good or evil meant. They may have codes, but ultimately weren't participants in that fight. That said, classes like Cleric and Paladin still did have the option of getting an alignment and putting themselves in that conflict. This helped alignment feel a lot more reasonable, considering it was now opt-in rather than forcing people's hands. There are some issues with doing alignment this way. It implies through its options that one cannot be lawful evil or chaotic good. Considering one of the things that devils do is make contracts they are cosmically required to follow, it feels a tad odd to have that portion of alignment omitted. While not alignment strictly, other systems have options for players to swear allegiance and fight for causes they believe in, although there is always the option to not do that. One of the most common ways to fix alignment is to simply get rid of it, instead opting for a more morally relativistic approach to the question. You can see this in games like Cyberpunk and Vampire the Masquerade. These games tend to present worlds of moral grayness, rather than something strictly right or wrong. They also tend to focus a lot more on faction play, rather than on law or chaos. Other games like Root focus more on allegiance and reputation building, giving players more tracks for helping certain factions of the game. Having them like you enough gives you bonuses when talking with the members of that faction. While these are awesome mechanics to play around with, they don't outright replace alignment. These games often don't have angels, demons, and devils fighting cosmic wars. They also tend to focus on individual character morality significantly less. In Cyberpunk, you are an edgerunner. In Vampire, you are a vampire. In Root, you are a vagabond. These are the assumptions made about the players and their characters to ensure everyone has a good time. Now, let's talk about Pathfinder Remastered. I feel most strongly that Pathfinder 2nd Edition looked at 4th Edition Dungeons & Dragons for inspiration on how to do a better form of alignment for the remaster. Back in 2019, the original Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook had alignment and some light information on running a game without it in the Game Mastery Guide. It was an important part of the game though, with many creatures being weak to alignment damage. After the OGL controversy, Paizo wanted to separate the Pathfinder brand from Dungeons & Dragons and look to revise the original Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules under their new Orc license. This change meant that many Dungeons & Dragons staples, like alignment, were ultimately dropped from the game. Paizo informed people that what would replace it would still be flavorful, but different. As the time came for the new rules to be released, Paizo told players that classes like Champion and Cleric would have the option to be sanctified by their god. This sanctification would categorize them as holy or unholy. This new sanctification then meant that spells and attacks that previously did alignment damage now just did spirit damage, and if you were wholly sanctified, it would do additional damage to creatures which are unwholly sanctified. This is a significantly better system for the cosmic conflict. However, we don't have a great indicator of what certain groups or factions believe. This is where edicts and anathema come in. The edicts and anathema of certain groups can give players and game masters a certain level of understanding of a particular faction's do's and don'ts. They also apply to certain ancestries, but they make it clear that this is general understanding of the ancestry and there are plenty of exceptions. This helps quite a bit since we've now built a set of rules and principles which are almost completely opt-in. Players who care about being holy or unholy will do the prerequisite work to become them. Players who don't care don't need to bother. It also allows each group to have more interesting beliefs beyond the two axes of alignment, and gives players a framework for their characters' beliefs and values. There are also no prescriptions on good and evil actions, there are simply actions which follow or break certain tenets. Now, some people might believe this breaks paladins or clerics, but it's clear now that they interact more with the edicts and anathema of their gods rather than interacting with alignment. This also means that players and game masters no longer have to worry about all the moral arguments for the character's decisions. You just need to see if the decisions you're making align with the specific edicts and anathema of the faction you belong to. While it's not a panacea, it should help with some of the issues which are inherent to role-playing a strict alignment. This is also not even touching on how spirit damage is just plainly better than alignment damage. Instead of having every true neutral creature be immune to your divine lance, instead it now still takes damage as a result of it having a spirit. It also helps that spirit damage can have additional effects regarding the way a creature is sanctified. It should make some of the alignment damage options more powerful and interesting. Outside of mechanics, it never made much sense to me why some creatures were weak to alignment damage narratively. For example, Holy Priest of the Highest Regard is hurt more by a demon's strikes rather than your average guy on the street. It makes way more sense that unholy spirit damage sullies a holy sanctified creature, and holy spirit damage cleans up the sullied spirit of an unholy creature. Overall, the changes here are for the better, and I hope the community isn't too bummed to see the alignment matrix go away. I truly believe this will lead to more interesting stories and better roleplay than alignment. I'm excited to see Paizo tackle the champion class with these new rules and understanding of alignment. I hope the wider TTRPG space sees how Paizo's moving toward a more unique and better future in the space.